In the still of night, the city of Troy lay in ruin, its grandeur now shadows amidst the hushed whispers of defeat. Troy, a bastion of strength, had been taken by deception, a cunning Greek ploy involving a wooden horse left as a deceptive gift. Within its belly, soldiers waited until the city slept, and with darkness as their ally, the Greek army emerged, opening Troy's gates to the waiting forces outside. The slaughter that followed was swift and merciless, the triumph of the Greeks echoing through every street and dwelling. In the midst of this chaos, Aeneas, a noble Trojan of heart and spirit, found slumber disturbed by the haunting visage of Hector's ghost. Hector, the fallen prince of Troy, appeared as a shadow, worn and bloodied from battle. With a voice that carried the weight of sorrow and urgency, he implored Aeneas to wake and escape the doomed city. Hector's warning bore the gravity of fate, urging Aeneas to gather what was left of honor and family and flee the devastation. With resolve, Aeneas stirred, gathering his family close, knowing the burdens that lay ahead. His father, Anchises, the symbol of wisdom and legacy, was frail, weighed down by age and the loss of a city he had loved. Reverently, Aeneas bore him upon his back, eyes staring towards a horizon unknown, while his young son, Ascanius, a symbol of hope and renewal, clung to his hand. As they weaved through streets lined with chaos and despair, Aeneas became the beacon for what's left of Trojan resilience. Yet, the transition from life to shadow claims warfare's toll, and amid the scramble and shadows, Aeneas's wife, Creusa, slipped from view. The expanse of confusion swallowed her presence, leading Aeneas to a frantic search. He called out into the night, voices of anguish seeking but finding no rest. The scattered embers of Troy's fall seemed to mirror his desperation, glowing fiercely, illuminating loss. Amidst the ruin, a new vision met Aeneas. Creusa's spirit stood before him, serene amidst chaos. She spoke, her voice a gentle breeze carrying foretelling and acceptance. "Aeneas, you must continue," she intoned, imparting visions of a distant future filled with promise, a journey destined by the gods. Though heartbroken, Aeneas recognized her words, the prophecies of a future entwining with his path, a seed planted towards a distant Italy. With a heavy heart but a duty reaffirmed, Aeneas accepted what must be. The forlorn shadow of Troy grew distant as he led what remained of his people, souls bound by fate's thread towards unknown horizons. Each step whispered of resilience and unyielding determination, every moment an echo of duty and honor. As the survivors gathered, their journey beyond Troy began. The road stretched towards new lands, where Aeneas would carve his destiny against divine wills and human trials. There, in those misty edges, Troy's embers would kindle hope anew, their light a quiet homage to a homeland both cherished and lost. The somber echoes of Troy's fall still lingered in the minds of Aeneas and his people as they sailed away. However, the darkness of their past soon made way for the celestial light of guidance, as Venus, the loving mother of Aeneas, appeared before him. In a gentle and reassuring presence, Venus comforted her weary son. She spoke of divine plans, unveiling the destiny that awaited them in the lands of Italy. The land was far and full of promise, a place where a new Troy would rise. Her words were neither hurried nor laden with urgency. Rather, they conveyed a quiet determination, instilling Aeneas with the resolve necessary for the journey ahead. Yet, even as Venus imparted her wisdom and hope, the ever-watchful eyes of Juno, the powerful goddess harboring resentment towards the Trojans, observed from afar. Her resentment was deep-rooted and unyielding, driven by long-standing grievances and perceived slights. Juno's unsettled heart yearned to thwart Aeneas's predetermined voyage. She schemed and plotted, determined to see him fall short of his goal. It was in this analysis of the cosmic balance between divine will and personal vendetta that the calm sea around Aeneas began to stir. Juno's malice soon manifested itself in the form of a tempestuous storm. The once calm waters roared with an unexpected fury, their violent sway casting Aeneas's fleet off its intended course. The ships battled against the relentless winds and raging waves, struggling to remain buoyant in the throes of Juno's wrath. But Venus's protection over her son was not without power. Amidst the chaos of the storm, she guided Aeneas's ships gently away from peril, safeguarding them from the darkest depths of the tumultuous sea. As the storm relented and the fleet sobered, the ships found haven along the shores of Thrace. The coast provided a momentary refuge, a quiet reprieve from the judgment of the heavens above. This semblance of tranquility afforded Aeneas and his people the opportunity to regroup and give thanks to the gods for their safe passage thus far. With humility and reverence, Aeneas performed sacrifices to honor the deities of the region, hoping to ensure their continued favor and safe passage on the way to their eventual home. Despite the relief felt in their temporary haven, the eyes of the heavens persisted, leaving Aeneas to ponder the signs and portents that directed their journey. One such divine vision revealed that Thrace was not destined to be their final stop. The prophetic vision came as an ethereal realization, whispering the truth that resonated in the hearts of the Trojans. Their journey was to continue. The realization was quietly accepted. They could not anchor their hopes here. Instead, they were to move forward in pursuit of the new destiny ordained by the gods. Gathered together by this newfound clarity, Aeneas and his followers made preparations to set sail once more. The sea beckoned them forward, with promises whispered by the wind. The divine signs that guided them were gentle and affirming, bolstering their faith and renewing their spirits. Their determination shone as bright as the dawn breaking over the calm, silvery waters where their ships lay anchored. Fortified by the conviction of their destined path, Aeneas and his people readied themselves to depart Thrace, their resolve as steadfast as their belief in Venus's words. With sails unfurling under a light mist of rain and a sky tinged with blue and silver hues, the fleet set off into the welcoming embrace of the sea. The gentle rain caressed the earth as a tribute to the divine intentions guiding Aeneas forward. It was a moment of anticipation, of hopeful beginnings, and of serenity born from a profound understanding of their fated journey. As they slipped into the vastness of the ocean, Aeneas and his people felt a sense of readiness, buoyed by the promise of divine guidance that would illuminate the path ahead. Amidst the gentle drizzle under an overcast sky, Aeneas and his fleet arrived at the sacred island of Delos. This island was cherished by Apollo, and its temple stood like a beacon amid the mist. The pilgrims, weary from their voyage and seeking solace, believed that here on holy ground, the clarity of divine declaration might descend upon them. As they disembarked, Aeneas, guided by the indefatigable spirit of his duty, approached the temple steps, his thoughts a mosaic of hope and responsibility. Seeking guidance, Aeneas approached the oracle of Delos, nestled within the hallowed confines of Apollo's temple. The air inside was charged with an unseen power, a palpable mixture of reverence and expectancy. Aeneas, with humility befitting his pious nature, offered prayers and words of supplication, seeking insight into their destined land. The oracle, draped in tradition and mystery, spoke in cryptic tones. Her words were wrapped in enigma, offering a riddle rather than a clear path. She spoke of a great land that beckoned from afar, a place where roots would take in fertile soil, but the vision was obscured, leaving space for misinterpretation. In devotion, Aeneas and his followers built altars upon this sacred earth, offering sacrifices in hope of securing divine favor and clarity. The scented smoke ascended, intertwining with the damp air, carrying with it their yearning and petitions to the heavens. Together, they invoked the guardian spirits of Delos, pledging their honor and fealty to the gods, seeking support for their arduous journey ahead. The solemn atmosphere bore witness to their earnestness as they laid their hopes and fears alongside their offerings. Contemplating the oracle's message, Aeneas found himself interpreting the cryptic guidance as pointing towards Crete, an ancient ancestral land connected through the thread of history to the Trojans. This apparent insight filled the hearts of his people with a renewed sense of mission. They cherished the thought of finding roots in a land that resonated with their heritage. Believing they had found their course, the fleet prepared to set sail, emboldened by what they perceived as the prophecy's direction. As the ships were readied and anchors lifted, Aeneas's heart held a quietly kindled hope, albeit shadowed by uncertainty. If Delian wisdom hinted at Crete's shores, he resolved to meet this destiny head-on, leading his people faithfully into the currents of potential fate. The ships departed from the misty island, each wave lapping against the hull, marking a step closer to what Aeneas hoped was the fulfillment of their foreseen future. Yet, ever watchful, Venus, Aeneas's divine mother, observed from her immortal vantage point. She discerned the subtle misunderstanding tainting the belief that Crete was their final destination. With gentle guidance, she made her presence known to Aeneas, her celestial glow an emblem of comfort amidst the gathering clouds of uncertainty. Her intervention was light, almost imperceptible, like a whispered reassurance traveling upon the breeze. Venus did not chastise her son for his interpretation. Rather, she illumined his path by hinting at a more distant goal, subtly nudging him in the correct direction. Her symbol appeared quietly among the stars, fulfilling her role as a protective guide to correct his course without inducing alarm. The touch of a divine hand steered the rudder towards the true end of their journey, setting their sails for the land where they were fated to plant new roots. In the serene aftermath of this gentle redirection, Aeneas absorbed his mother's unspoken guidance, and a deeper understanding settled over him, strengthening his resolve. Thus, their journey continued, colored by the same steadfast determination that had guided them from the smoking ruins of Troy. Navigating the mysteries of prophecy and the seas alike, they pressed on, surrounded by the lingering echoes of divine influence and human yearning. As the horizon opened before them, the fleet rode the waves with a quiet confidence rekindled by Venus' calming presence. Across the vast expanse of the sea, their minds were eased by the knowledge that the gods watched over them, even as they navigated the delicate threads of fate. In their hearts, a harmony with destiny began to blossom, a sacred trust rekindled by the invisible hands that guided their way. The journey from Delos had filled Aeneas and his followers with a sense of misguided hope, as they believed Crete would be their new home. The fleet sailed steadily across the Mediterranean, guided by the cryptic words of the Oracle of Delos, which Aeneas interpreted as a summons to Crete, the land from which their ancestor Teucer hailed. With the final whispers of Venus in his mind, they sought the beginnings of a new Troy where others had once prospered. Upon arriving at the shores of Crete, the Trojans stepped onto the land with a sense of eagerness. They quickly began to establish a settlement, fueled by the belief that they were fulfilling a divine mandate. Tents were pitched, altars raised, and the air buzzed with activity and hopeful voices. The great hero Aeneas, with his revered father Anchises by his side, and young Ascanius, eager to make footprints in this new earth, watched over the developments with a discerning eye, ever mindful of a discerning eye. The necessity to honor the gods. However, this newfound sense of peace was short-lived. Soon after setting foot on the island, an unseen threat began to unsettle the order they had started to create. A mysterious plague swept through their camp, ravaging the people and sapping the strength of even the most resilient among them. Day after day, Prayers rose from the lips of the desperate Trojans, while sacrificial smoke curled towards the heavens, pleas to an unseen power for reprieve from their sufferings. Seeking answers to their plight, Aeneas offered sacrifices to the gods. He stood before the flames, invoking their mercy and wisdom, and asked for guidance in what felt like a dark and bewildering night. This moment of ritual devotion proved pivotal, for in the quiet of slumber that followed, Aeneas received a vision unlike any other. In the depth of his dreams, the household gods of Troy appeared to him, luminous and serene. They spoke with gentle yet certain voices, revealing that Crete was not their destined endpoint. Instead, they urged him toward Italy, a land promised by fate and the rule of prophecy. Awakened and filled with a profound understanding, Aeneas gathered his followers to share the divine message. He spoke calmly, yet with the conviction of one touched by the will of the gods. The visions, he explained, pointed beyond Crete to Italy, a distant realm where the pulse of destiny awaited their arrival. His followers, though weary, received this revelation with a renewed sense of purpose, trusting in their leader who had guided them through trials before. As if responding to the divine vow, the plague that had beleaguered the Trojans began to lift, its shadow receding from their camp. Faces once dulled by illness brightened with life, and the vigor of a people once held captive by suffering returned. The clearing of the skies mirrored the brighter path now laid before them. Boats once thought to rest were made ready again with hands both steady and eager, driven by a newfound determination to continue their voyage. Departing Crete, Aeneas stood at the shore, envisioning the journey that lay ahead. The twilight rain began to clear, revealing a soft golden horizon kissing the infinite blue sea, symbolic of the boundless future promised by divine destiny. Aeneas, anchored by faith in the echoes of ancient prophecies, nodded to the murmuring waters, a quiet acknowledgement of the trials faced and the hopeful road beyond. With sails harnessed to the embrace of the wind, Aeneas's fleet pushed away from the Cretan shore, their path now clearer under the gentle gaze of the gods that watched from the heavens above. Filled with resilience, the Trojans ventured onwards, their eyes set firmly on the horizon where Italy awaited their arrival. The journey of Aeneas and his fleet continued with renewed determination as they sailed across the expansive Ionian Sea. Their previous trials seemed to linger slightly behind them, with hope soaring higher than the mast of their ships. The Trojans, guided by ancient prophecies and signs from above, were resolute in their mission to find a new home, promised by the divine. The winds, tempered by their mixed fortunes, guided them steadily to the Strophades, a small group of islands that lay along their stringent course. Upon arrival at the Strophades, the Trojans were greeted by sights that suggested abundance and relief. These islands, lush and fertile, seemed to offer a reprieve from their maritime ordeals. As the ships anchored and the men set foot on land, they were met with an abundance of food that lay seemingly untouched and ripe for harvest. The weary travelers, starved from days at sea, decided to feast heartily from the rich offerings of nature, their spirits momentarily lifted by the unexpected bounty laid before them. Yet, as they began their feast, a sudden disturbance unfolded. Wings flapped overhead, casting shadows across their banquet. The Harpies, bird-like creatures with human faces, descended upon the feast with terrifying shrieks. These creatures, guardians of the islands, were alarmed at the intrusion. The sky, which had seemed so favorably blue, was soon filled with their menacing forms, darkening the land with their presence. The Harpies swooped down upon the food, defiling it with a horrid stench and rendering it unfit for consumption. Aeneas, with the wisdom he had gleaned through his many trials, took charge swiftly. Rallying his men, he ordered them to try driving the creatures away, wielding their swords in an attempt to protect their meal. Despite their best efforts, the Harpies proved to be both swift and elusive, evading the soldiers' attempts at driving them off. The fleet's supplies were threatened by the persistence of the Harpies, and amidst the chaos, a sense of foreboding settled over Aeneas. As the Trojans struggled against these relentless attackers, the lead Harpy Celaeno alighted on a rock, her eyes fierce and accusatory. She spoke not only with anger but with a certainty that sent shivers down the spine of those who listened. Celaeno pronounced a dreadful curse upon the intruders. She foretold that the Trojans would face dire hunger on their journey, not to be relieved until they were forced to consume their very tables, a cryptic declaration that left Aeneas and his companions taken aback. The ominous prophecy hung heavily in the air. Aeneas, thoughtful and attentive to the mysteries of fate, gathered his thoughts as the Harpies retreated. Questions loomed about the nature of this curse and its implications for their journey. The words echoed the shifting tides, an unclear direction they yet had to decipher. Though uneasy, Aeneas knew that they had to press on, for lingering on the Strophiades would surely bring more anguish. Thus, with the ominous warning lingering uncomfortably in their minds, the Trojans returned to their vessels, each man carrying the burden of Celaeno's prophecy. Aeneas reflected on the seeming inevitability of the cursed fate described, trying to unravel its deeper meaning and how it fit within the broader narrative of their journey. As the fleet set sail once more, shadows of the Harpies still circled in the minds of the men, encircling their hearts like the storm clouds that now gathered ominously overhead. The open sea broadened once more before them, holding its own questions and mysteries that awaited discovery. As their ships cut through the restless, unrelenting waves of the Ionian Sea, the Trojans each grappled with the unease of the prophecy and the challenge of the uncharted waters that lay ahead. Aeneas, though burdened by this recent encounter, felt the familiar embers of his resolve stoking the fires of purpose within. As they ventured onward, the fleet, though diminished in spirits, remained united in their mission. The promise of the land beyond the horizon loomed closer, entwined with the remnants of these recent trials. Aeneas, ever the leader, silently vowed to see the journey through, his duty not only to the gods who watched from above, but to those who followed him unquestioningly, though uncertainty pooled Aetiotirar. Their feet like the sea foam they plowed through. The Strophiades receded behind them, an indelible mark on their voyage, a testament to the trials and celestial wills that bore down upon their fate. Aeneas, sensing both the storm and sunlight that lay in the path ahead, steeled himself for what was to come. After sailing away from the Strophiades with thoughts clouded by the Harpies' curse, Aeneas's fleet arrived at the shores of Actium, seeking a much-needed respite. The journey had been arduous, filled with many trials that had tested both their strength and spirits. Here, the weary Trojans hoped to find a brief sanctuary where they could gather their thoughts and renew their resolve before continuing on their destined path. The calm azure sea met the sandy beaches gently, inviting a rare moment of peace amidst a journey laden with struggles. Upon setting foot on the Actian coast, Aeneas quickly recognized the significance of taking the time to rejuvenate his companions. The men, though burdened by their recent encounters with divine curses, found solace in the serene environment. With their leader drawing strength from a quiet yet determined resolve, they were reminded of the importance of unity and hope. To underscore the moment, Aeneas decided to construct altars and perform sacred rites, a ritual that had long been part of their tradition and a way to honor the gods who watched over them. As the smoke from the offerings curled gently into the clear sky, a renewed vigor seemed to envelop the gathering. The sacred rituals not only honored the deities, but also reinforced the spiritual strength among the Trojans. Every prayer whispered, every incantation uttered, served to build the morale that had been battered by the journey's hardships. With each ceremonial rite performed, their spirits lifted, energizing Aeneas's followers and reaffirming the commitment to their sacred mission. Under the unfaltering gaze of the sun, and with the blessings of Apollo, the Trojans indulged in simple pleasures to lift their spirits. Encouraged by Aeneas, they held athletic games on the sands of Actium, a fitting tribute to celebrate the small but significant victories amid the challenges that lay ahead. From running races to contests of strength, each event was a testament to their enduring camaraderie and dogged determination. There was laughter and cheers, and for a brief while the weight of prophecy felt lighter, enfolding the men in a shared sense of optimism. In a heartfelt gesture of devotion and gratitude, Aeneas dedicated a trophy to Apollo. The gift was not only a symbol of thanks for the guidance received thus far, but also a prayer for continued protection on their precarious voyage. In making the offering, Aeneas reaffirmed his unwavering faith in the gods and his reliance on divine favor to bolster their journey. This act further inspired his followers, encouraging them to pledge acts of prophesied courage and resilience as they prepared to face whatever trials awaited. As the games drew to a close, symbols of hope and unity began to take root among the Trojans. Each man understood that their collective strength and shared purpose were their most significant assets. The warmth of camaraderie wrapped around them like a cloak, shielding them against the shadows of doubt cast by Celaeno's earlier curse. The promises exchanged and the bonds renewed instilled a sense of invulnerability, allowing each participant to grip firmly onto the intangible threads of fate that guided them forward. Rested and revitalized, Aeneas's fleet soon stood ready to set sail once more. With the memory of Actium's peace etched into their hearts, they prepared their vessels, eager to resume their voyage under the encouraging skies. The clear weather seemed to bless their departure, offering an auspicious omen for the next stretch of their endeavor. Minds filled with newfound hope and hearts beating with courage, the Trojans embraced the challenges that lay beyond the horizon. As Aeneas led his followers back to their ships, the sands of Actium bore witness to a transformation from weary souls to those emboldened by conviction. The clarity of purpose gained from their respite kindled a new resolve, a promise to fulfill the prophecies that kept them charting the course toward Italy. With the vision of Rome's eventual grandeur guiding their sails, the Trojans embarked afresh, buoyed by a subtle yet profound sense of destiny. Their vessels, kissed by the morning sun, glided across the calm seas, destiny urging them forward. Though uncertainty still tingled at the edges of their stoic resolve, there was an underlying acceptance that this journey had to unfold as woven by fate. Guided by the divine and sustained by their unwavering faith, Aeneas and his followers left Actium behind, setting forth once more toward their promised land. As Aeneas and his fleet sailed away from Actium, they left behind a sense of renewed hope and determination, their spirits buoyed by the rituals and offerings made to Apollo. Now, the calming rhythm of the waves guided them across the seas once more. Their destination? Known only to the dreams and oracles that shaped their course, revealing itself as the mists lifted to uncover the shores of Buthrotum. Upon arrival in Buthrotum, Aeneas and his companions were greeted with a sight that stirred their memories of home, a city imbued with the spirit of Troy. Here, the Trojans marveled at the familiar architecture and symbols reminiscent of their lost city. Within this comforting setting, Aeneas encountered Helenus, the son of Priam, who had survived the fall of Troy and taken refuge in these lands. Now a respected seer, Helenus ruled over Buthrotum with wisdom and foresight, embodying the enduring legacy of their shared heritage. Helenus welcomed them with open arms, and a sense of mutual respect blossomed between the two noble Trojans. As they conversed within the temple's arched halls, draped in the gentle patter of autumn rain, Helenus spoke of the respect and kinship that bound their fates, highlighting the resilience of Thetes. Trojan spirit. They reminisced about the past and spoke of the promising futures slowly emerging on the horizon. In the midst of their discussions, Helenus drew upon his visionary gifts, revealing prophecies that would shape the destiny of Aeneas and his people. He shared divine instructions, guiding Aeneas toward the fulfillment of his sacred duty. Through the seer's words, key symbols for the founding of their future city were revealed, weaving the fabric of a prophecy that cemented their path to Italy, where the seeds of Rome would one day flourish. These revelations were more than mere words. They were a reassurance of the divine will charting the course of Aeneas's journey. Helenus, with his seer's insight, offered not only prophecies but also support for the Trojans' mission, infusing their quest with purpose and clarity. He reminded Aeneas that the trials faced on their journey were steps laid out by the gods, with each challenge fortifying their resolve and bringing them ever closer to their destined land. Emboldened by Helenus's encouragement, Aeneas felt his resolve strengthen. The prophecies illuminated his path, allowing him to see their challenges as opportunities to grow and mature into the leader his father and the gods envisioned. Sharing these insights with his companions, Aeneas found renewed unity and determination within their ranks, a reflection of the enduring spirit of Troy that lived on through their journey. With the gentle rain continuing to kiss the gardens surrounding the temple, Aeneas bid farewell to Helenus, grateful for the guidance and kinship shared. The fleet, now armed with newfound knowledge and assurance, prepared to leave Buthrotum. The parting was marked not by sorrow, but by a hopeful acknowledgement of their collective destinies, linked by the tapestry of prophecy and divine will. As the ship set sail once more, their sails filling with a favorable breeze, Aeneas and his followers carried with them the insights gained in Buthrotum. The journey ahead was still fraught with challenges, but the clarity of their mission and the divine blessings that continued to guide them offered a comforting certainty in the face of the unknown. The Trojans departed, with Aeneas's mind and heart firmly set on the path that lay before them. As Aeneas and his fellow Trojans departed the welcoming harbor of Buthrotum, their spirits were buoyed by the prophecies and guidance imparted by Helenus. The fleet, resolute in their mission, now sailed with a clear purpose across the tranquil waters of the Mediterranean, headed towards their next destination, the island of Sicily. Aeneas planned only a brief stopover, a respite for his weary companions, and the chance to gather fresh provisions before continuing their fateful journey. Yet, as often woven by the delicate threads of fate, the stay in Sicily would bring unexpected sorrow and profound reflection. Upon landing on the Sicilian shores, the Trojans were met with a landscape that mirrored their own state of being, quiet, yet laden with the whispers of the past. It was an island imbued with legends and tales, and one that now became part of Aeneas's own narrative, for it was here that his cherished father Anchises would meet his destined end. Anchises, the wise and guiding figure who had thus far been the anchor for Aeneas, succumbed to the ever-turning wheel of fate. His passing marked a somber moment, a reminder of the unyielding nature of time and the legacies left in its wake. Grief enveloped Aeneas and his people as they mourned the loss of Anchises. In his honor, Aeneas decreed that funeral games be held, a tradition deeply rooted amongst the Trojans to celebrate the life and memories of those who passed. The gentle winds of the Sicilian coast carried the sounds of the contests as Aeneas's companions competed in various feats of strength and skill. This poignant tribute, underpinned by the solemn acknowledgement of Anchises' wisdom, allowed the Trojans a moment to reflect on their journey thus far and the path still stretching before them. During these somber games, the heavens did not remain silent. Divine signs, often sent as quiet whispers rather than thunderous shouts, seemed to acknowledge the honor paid to Anchises. As the games unfolded, there appeared omens that suggested a dual meaning, one of respect for the past, but also an encouragement to look forward. The sunlight breaking through the clouds acted as a beacon, implying that though the past must be remembered, it should not anchor them unduly. It was an ethereal reminder of the promise that lay ahead and the necessity to stride forward with courage. In a final gesture of love and appreciation, Aeneas dedicated a monument to Anchises on the sloping Sicilian hills, a testament to his father's legacy and an eternal symbol for future generations to honor and remember. With reverent hands, Aeneas placed flowers upon this memorial, paying tribute in silence. It stood not only as a reminder of the man who had guided him since Troy's fall, but also as a signpost for the destiny that was unfolding, a destiny which required Aeneas to bravely carry the torch forward. However, the serenity of this moment was tested by rising tensions among the factions of Trojans. The sudden loss of their patriarch led to differing desires among the people. Some yearned for a pause, a chance to root themselves temporarily in this rich land and grieve, while others, driven by their unyielding instincts, pressed for onward travel. It was a visible struggle between the heart's desires and the mind's duty, one that Aeneas had to carefully navigate to ensure his people remained united and focused on their ultimate goal. Aeneas, gathering strength from the legacy and lessons of Anchises, steeled himself with renewed resolve. Despite the tumultuous undercurrents, he knew that their journey was divinely ordained, and that Sicily was but a waypoint in their saga. With a leader's resolve, he reminded his people of their promise, to the gods and to themselves, to find and establish a new home in Italy. Compelled by this guiding principle and his father's memory, Aeneas prepared the fleet for departure, committing to the continuance of their mythic voyage. As gentle raindrops began to fall upon Anchises' memorial, the Trojans gathered around, casting one last look at the overcast horizon and the cloud-shrouded cliffs of Sicily. The bonds of family, faith, and shared destiny wove their intricate web around them, ensuring that even as they left this sacred isle, the spirit of Anchises sailed with them. With hearts heavy yet hopeful, they set their course once more towards the promise of their destined land. Heavy winds swept across the Mediterranean, steering Aeneas and his fleet towards the ancient and bustling city of Carthage. Queen Dido, renowned for her wisdom and leadership, welcomed the Trojans with open arms. She offered them refuge, her hospitality stemming from a shared understanding of loss and exile. In her court, Aeneas recounted the long and arduous journey that had brought them to her shores, detailing the trials and tribulations that had tested their resolve since Troy's fall. Queen Dido listened intently, captivated by Aeneas's tale of resilience and hope, finding within it echoes of her own trials. Both leaders had faced great challenges, but where Aeneas's path was guided by destiny, Dido's was marked by her determination to establish a new life after fleeing her brother's wrath. As these kindred spirits shared their stories, a bond began to form between them, nurtured by Venus's divine machinations. The goddess, eager to protect her son, encouraged this affinity, hoping it might provide Aeneas with solace and rest. Dido, deeply moved by Aeneas's strength and heart, revealed her own ambitions and the burdens that accompanied her rule. Her words resonated with Aeneas, who saw in her a reflection of the queen he once knew in Troy. Their mutual admiration blossomed into an affection that, for a moment, seemed to promise respite from their weary travels. Yet, this burgeoning romance did not go unnoticed by the ever-watchful goddess Juno, who harbored resentment toward Aeneas and his destined role in founding a new Troy. Plotting to ensnare Aeneas and bind him to Carthage, Juno sought to manipulate the circumstances to divert his path. She seized upon a brewing storm, sending it to disrupt Aeneas's plans. As tempestuous winds and rains descended upon Carthage, Dido and Aeneas sought shelter together within the city's halls, their shared experiences drawing them closer. Within the storm's embrace, aided by a haze of divine intervention, a ceremony unfolded, seemingly tying the two lovers in the bonds of marriage. This act, orchestrated by Juno, wove a delicate web of illusion around Aeneas and Dido, masking what was a fleeting love with the guise of permanence. The people of Carthage celebrated the union, perceiving it as a welcome alliance that might strengthen their city. Yet beneath the camaraderie and festivity lingered a note of unease, as Aeneas felt the weight of its implications. Despite the warmth and acceptance offered in Carthage, Aeneas could not escape the feeling of dissonance between his heart's desires and his divine obligation. In quiet moments, he would gaze across the sea, pondering the path that lay before him, as whispers of prophecies echoed in his mind. Still, for a while, the demands of destiny were soothed by Dido's presence, and he allowed himself to dwell in this brief reprieve. As dusk began painting Carthaginian gardens with deep blue and emerald hues, glistening with the remnants of rain, the air was filled with both enchantment and the subtle impermanence of their situation. Within whispered promises and entwined gazes, Aeneas found a refuge from the relentless pursuit of fate, even if only briefly. The gardens were alive with color and life, but a gentle reminder lingered like an evening breeze. It was but a moment captured in the passage of time. Anecdotes from Aeneas's past, tales woven with mythical undertones, found receptive ears in Dido. Her fascination was not merely with the hero himself, but with the shared notion of forging a legacy from the remnants of destruction. While Carthage thrived under her rule, the allure of joining forces with Aeneas stirred her imagination and aspirations. Yet the harmony that seemed to settle over Aeneas's weary band was shadowed by the inevitable call of duty, destiny's silent insistence that this chapter in his journey was merely a pause, not conclusion. The allure of resting his burdens entirely in Carthage's embrace was ephemeral, like the evening mists that promised calm before yielding to the dawn. Thus, even as Carthage offered Aeneas sanctuary, the silent guidance of divine hands set in motion the next steps that would lead him, and his followers, onward. The seeds of change and choice gently germinated in the twilight, hinting at the decisions and consequences that loomed on the horizon, slowly gathering strength to carry Aeneas from this enchanting realm to his rightful mission. Reflecting upon the profound connection he shared with Dido, Aeneas would soon find that the call to fulfill his fated journey resonated stronger. And as the night wore on, destined plans awaited execution beneath the vast celestial canopy, endlessly compelling him towards Italy's promised shores. Aeneas, the noble Trojan hero, found himself amidst the splendor of Carthage, where the warmth and charm of Queen Dido enveloped him like a comforting embrace. His heart was torn between the allure of the present, shared stories of love and loss with Dido, and the pull of destiny whispering like a gentle breeze ever tugging at his sails. The soft Carthaginian nights were filled with dreams of what might be, dreams that sometimes obscured the path laid out by divine decree. Yet, in those moments of quiet reflection, Aeneas saw the shadow of what must come, reminding him that his journey was far from over. In the midst of this internal struggle, a winged messenger was sent from the heavens. Mercury, the swift herald of the gods, descended with subtlety and purpose. He found Aeneas pondering the future in his private chambers, his presence as light as the dawn mist. Mercury, bearing the authority of Jupiter, spoke no words aloud, but inspired within Aeneas a powerful reminder, a vivid image of the Tiber River, a beacon of the homeland waiting to be claimed. It was a nudge, gentle yet insistent, prompting the hero to remember the weight of the promise he was meant to fulfill. Understanding the divine omen and feeling the stir of duty in his heart, Aeneas knew his course was set. Quietly, with the care of one tiptoeing around a sleeping world, he began making secret preparations. The fleet, scattered but ever staunch, was gathered under the cover of night. Supplies were stored stealthily, and orders were whispered among loyal followers ready to heed the call. Aeneas bore the burden of silent goodbyes, knowing full well the pain it would bring to those who remained unaware. Dido, however, was not one to be kept in the dark. The queen, perceptive and deeply bound by their shared bond, soon discovered Aeneas's quiet machinations. She confronted him, her pleas laced with both passion and sorrow. She spoke of all they built together, the shared glances that promised more than what now seemed destined to crumble like sandcastles under approaching tides. The negotiation between heart and fate played out in her tearful eyes, seeking to sway the resolute hero with the vivid sincerity of her love. Yet, Aeneas, though touched by her heartfelt appeals and the undeniable pain reflected in her gaze, could not be swayed from his path. The duty that called to him was more than a whisper. It was a refrain that echoed from the origins of his lineage. Resolutely, he embraced the role bestowed upon him, an unwavering leader whose destiny was woven by the hands of gods themselves. He offered Dido the truth wrapped in the velvet of compassion, knowing that what he must now do could not be withheld without consequence. On a night shrouded by mist and quieted storms, the fleet slipped away from Carthage's embrace. The sea, though cloaked in shadow, appeared almost to conspire with Aeneas's escape, shielding him from prying eyes. As the ships glided over the darkened waves, Dido stood upon her palace's high walls, watching the silhouette of Aeneas's vessels dissolve into the horizon. Her heart, once so wholly given, broke with a tragic curse that carried the strength of her relentless anguish. With her final breath as a mortal echo reverberating across the waters, Dido called down a seething farewell, a curse forged from the depths of her grief and betrayal. It was a testament of her formidable spirit, destined to linger in the currents and winds that would forever carry whispers of her name. Thus, the tale of Aeneas and Dido drifted apart under the vast expanse of chaotic heavens, a sorrowful testament to the intersection of mortal love and immortal decree. As the fleet sailed onward, Aeneas felt the weight of his choice upon him, heavier than any shield he had ever borne in battle. The sun began its gentle rise over the distant horizon, casting the first timid rays through the parting mists, a quiet witness to the eternal cycle of beginnings knitted together with endings. For Aeneas, every breath of the cool morning air was a renewed vow to fulfill his purpose. As the solemn sea journey continued toward lands yet unrealized, the journey of Aeneas carried him to the ancient shores of Cumae, where the whispers of prophecy awaited through the cryptic voice of the Sibyl. Aeneas, ever faithful to the path laid by destiny, approached the famed oracle, longing for insight into the future that lay ahead. The Sibyl, enveloped in the mysteries of time, prepared to unveil the visions hidden within the shadows of the underworld. As twilight cast its gentle veil over the world, Aeneas braced himself for the revelations that awaited beneath the earth. Guided by the Sibyl, Aeneas stepped towards the entrance of the underworld, a shadowed cavern that loomed mysteriously amidst swirling mists. The path was shrouded in both darkness and the whispers of souls long departed, their ethereal voices carrying tales of past sorrows and glories. With every step, Aeneas felt the weight of countless spirits who lingered in this realm between worlds, and the knowledge that he too must tread this sacred ground for the sake of understanding. Upon entering the underworld, Aeneas beheld the souls of the departed in their myriad forms, each one carrying lessons etched in the very fabric of their beings. He saw the spirits of the unburied condemned to roam without peace, and the shades of noble warriors, eternally striving for the virtues they held dear in life. Aeneas listened, absorbing the tales of woe and wisdom, understanding that these echoes were threads in the tapestry of the fate that bound him. In the depths of this spectral realm, Aeneas encountered the spirit of his beloved father, Anchises. Anchises, with a presence that transcended the veil of mortality, stood as a beacon of legacy and truth. His visage was both familiar and otherworldly, and Aeneas felt the bond of blood and destiny strengthen between them. Anchises revealed visions of Rome's glorious future, a future built on the foundations Aeneas was destined to lay. Through these visions, Aeneas saw the mighty emperors of Rome, majestic in their purpose, and the peacekeepers destined to govern with wisdom and justice, their lineage woven from his own bloodline. The prophecies unfolded before Aeneas, painting a picture of a city that would grow from humble beginnings to monumental grandeur. The triumphs of generations yet unborn were laid bare, and the great feats that would carve Rome's name into the annals of history were foreseen with clarity. Anchises imparted these revelations with a serene majesty, emphasizing the duty that rested on Aeneas's shoulders, to fulfill the destiny designed by the gods, a destiny that stretched from the depths of this shadowed realm to the heights of eternal renown. Embracing his ancestral duty with renewed conviction, Aeneas absorbed the wisdom granted by his father. The lessons of legacy and honor, intertwined with the fate of Rome, became his guiding light. The journey through the underworld had transformed Aeneas, endowing him with the knowledge needed to navigate the sacred path before him. As he bid farewell to Anchises, Aeneas felt the profound impact of the revelations and the weight of his mission invigorating his spirit. With his vision cleared by the echoes of eternity, Aeneas and the Sibyl returned to the realm of the living. Emerging from the shadowed cavern, Aeneas stood before the twilight sky, the world around him imbued with a renewed sense of purpose. The fleet awaited beyond the mists, ready to continue their fateful voyage toward the lands promised by destiny. Aeneas, fortified with the wisdom gleaned from the depths, rejoined his companions, sharing the sacred revelations that would guide them forward. Rejuvenated by the experiences of his mystical journey, Aeneas knew that the trials ahead would be met with courage and resolve. The fleet, emboldened by the inspiration of their leader, prepared to set sail once more. As the ships drifted from the shore, the promise of a new beginning on distant shores lingered in the air, like a gentle breath of hope guiding their way. Thus, with the wisdom of the underworld etched in his heart and the promise of Rome glimmering on the horizon, Aeneas continued his saga across the waves, a hero steadfast in his mission to fulfill the divine blueprint set by the gods. Aeneas's journey, long and arduous, had at last brought him to the place foretold by oracles and destined by the gods. As dawn unveiled the calm waters of the Tiber, his fleet navigated towards its mouth, where the river's gentle banks whispered of new beginnings. This sacred shore of Italy, the culmination of every voyage and trial, welcomed the Trojans with an aura of serenity. Signs from above seemed to affirm their arrival. Birds soared effortlessly across the sky, a symbol of fate's approval, instilling hope within their weary hearts. Stepping ashore with a steadfast gaze, Aeneas was greeted by the land's fair ruler, King Latinus. The king, aware of the prophecies surrounding his own daughter's fate, and a foreign prince, was keen to meet the man decreed to fulfill these ancient portents. As Aeneas introduced himself, Latinus recognized in him the echoes of destiny that had been foretold. Despite the burden of his long journey, Aeneas radiated an aura of duty and determination, qualities which Latinus respected greatly. Understanding the fateful signs, King Latinus extended an olive branch of friendship and proposed a union that would bind their fates together. He offered his daughter, Lavinia, as a bride to Aeneas. This gesture held more than mere alliance between two realms. It signified the mingling of Trojan and Latin blood, the very seed from which a mighty lineage would arise. Aeneas, mindful of his celestial mission, accepted the offer with gratitude, seeing in it the fruition of his toil and endurance. However, the path to peace was not free of hurdles. Juno, steadfast in her opposition to Aeneas and the Trojans, resolved to disrupt this union that threatened to fulfill what was decreed by higher powers. In a final attempt to thwart the destinies intertwined, Juno stirred the hearts of the Latin people against the newcomers. Her manipulation sowed discord and unrest, leading to a palpable tension that lingered in the charged air. Inevitable conflict arose, a battle sparked by misunderstandings and kindled by divine mischief. Warriors gathered under banners of war, their hearts fueled by ancestral pride and the urge to defend their land from foreign claim. The scene was set for strife, yet the hand of the gods had not withdrawn its guiding influence. As swords clashed and shouts echoed through the valleys, divine intervention swayed the tide of battle. Under Venus's watchful eye, Aeneas was imbued with strength and resolve. His leadership, inspired and unswerving, gradually turned the embers of hostility into acceptance. In the end, it was neither might nor force that ensured peace, but the realization of each side's place in the grand tapestry of fate. Juno at last relented under Jupiter's command, acknowledging that divine will must unfold as decreed. A truce was called, and hostility ceased, calming the anxious hearts of warriors on both sides. Through diplomacy and mutual respect, a new understanding was forged, an alliance born of both necessity and promise. Celebration followed, a joyous acknowledgement of the newfound unity between the Trojans and Latins. Aeneas and Lavinia's marriage symbolized the inception of a united people, destined to birth a civilization of enduring legacy. The ceremony, under the watchful eyes of the gods, wove together two strands of destiny, promising a line that would stretch through the ages onto the annals of history. With peace secured and futures intertwined, the vision of a new city began to form in Aeneas's mind. He foresaw not just a city but a beacon, a place from which greatness would radiate to all corners of the known world. Plans were laid for the settlement, a bastion that would eventually flourish into what the world would one day know as Rome. The land, laced with the promise of prosperity and endurance, seemed to breathe with anticipation, welcoming the dawn of a new era. As the settlers busied themselves with preparations, Aeneas stood by the riverbank, a leader fulfilled yet ever resolute, his eyes setting upon the sunrise over the hills. It was a morning teeming with golden light, embodying the hope and promise that such beginnings herald. The whisper of the river carried the words of destiny, telling of empires yet to come, of legends and heroes to rise. In this serene acceptance was the gentle drift into a future prophesied but not yet written, as each soul prepared to lay their mark upon the earth in the pursuit of greatness. And so, Aeneas's journey, from the ashes of Troy to the verdant shores of Italy, culminated in the planting of Rome's very seed. The story, etched in myth and fate, carried with it the dream of monuments and the promise of an illustrious lineage, offering a gentle nudge for each listener to drift into the realm of restful dreams, with echoes of a future bright and unwritten.